right.
Hey.
So, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Life Work Podcast. My name is Wendy Kay, and this is episode 3. And today we're going to be talking about joy and laughter in the workplace. Specifically, is it safe for work? And this is also part of what I'm calling the Chaos series, because I'm exploring these different topics in the context of the pandemic right now. And especially now with a lot of people, with a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of tension. There's people who have to be in their workplace, and there are people who can work from home, but there's still a lot of anxiety and pressure and tension. So is the idea of being happy at work still appropriate, or are people feeling guilty? And I just want to explore that topic in general about when is it professional to be you, and when can you bring your authentic self to work? So today I have Micah Wilson here as my guest. Micah is probably one of the most fun person I've ever met at work. So that's why she's the perfect person to talk about this. Now, Micah is the HR manager at Puppet, and she's going to get her MBA pretty soon. So, woohoo! Yeah. Well, Micah, why don't you say a couple things about yourself? Just let people know who you are and what you're about.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. I'm really excited for your podcast series. I'm a subscriber, and I'm really thankful that you have me on today to talk about my favorite thing, which is making the workplace fun. And just a little bit about myself. Like she said, I'm an MBA student at Portland State University. I'm really interested in leadership. I've been a volleyball coach and a teacher, and I've traveled a lot, and I just love the human experience and all the fun, positive things about life. And so I like to bring that into my workplace. So that's
great.
A little bit about me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Micah. And I think everything you said about yourself, it's like, oh yeah, I know that about you. I see that about you. I think the first time we met was actually over something that I think most people wouldn't connect with. It was before work started, and you texted me saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what to wear to work. And for some reason, I personally wouldn't have not thought of reaching out to someone with that question, but the fact that you did really broke down the walls for me.
Yeah.
And so and there's an element of humor in that, right? There's an element of oh my gosh, I don't know what to do here. It's a little bit funny. But then it also got me thinking, because as I observed you at work, you laugh, you bring a lot of joy. When there's a celebration, you make it a point to celebrate people, and you celebrate your team, and you include them in pretty much any fun that you have. So, and it also made me think, why don't I do that more? There was a time when people have told me, and for those of you who watched the previous episode, my first episode with Kevin Bush, when he and I first met, he said that it was really hard to read me. He said, it's just really hard to get to know what you're about, what you're thinking, you seem really serious.
Mm-hmm.
But he said it was not a bad thing. But at the same time, I thought, I'm not a super serious person all the time.
No.
When you know me in the social space, I make silly jokes. I laugh at silly things. I love everything funny.
Yeah.
So then it got me thinking, what is Micah doing that I'm not doing? What is she doing that in her mind, there's no barrier? So I kind of just wanted to talk about that with you.
Yeah. I think, I've thought a lot about this too. And for me, it seems really natural. But if I look back on my life, I wasn't always like this. And it's definitely been something that I've chose to do and chose to show up as a positive, fun, outgoing person. And I think what it really comes down to is inhibition. So we're told to be serious about our work and to be, a certain way when we're in the workplace. Yeah. And that is really powerful. If everyone around you in your workplace is serious and heads down, and, people are saying, shh, don't make noise, don't laugh. Yeah. If that's the culture that you're kind of growing up in as an employee, it's really hard to break that mold, and to be the first one to kind of make a joke or to laugh. And a lot of it is stand-up comedy too, because you can never know how your joke or your goofiness is going to land on other people. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of there's a lot of fear involved with it that I experience even when I'm doing it. But I just have to say, you know what? It's worth it to me to create this culture, to be my authentic self, to be positive and joyful. It's worth it to me to do that than if people think that I'm an idiot or they don't think I'm serious about my job. So I have to have like a level of confidence that if the joke doesn't land well or people just think I'm not serious, then my work is going to speak for itself. Like, I'm still very serious about work. I do a great job. I'm very focused on quality and, you know, turning out a good product. But also, let's have fun while we do it, because life is too short to just be serious all the time, is my opinion.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I agree. The last part you said about, you know, doing a good job is that's the thing I notice about you, is that you're very results oriented. You're very action oriented. And I think when we took a personality assessment together, you came out as like the sunshine person or whatever it was, right?
The
and I would say, and I would say, you know, I would agree. So for those of you listening, we're talking about insights. I would agree. At the same time, it doesn't diminish the fact that you are also very action oriented. And that's what I observed. And I thought, I wonder if that's the balance that's needed, that you kind of have the leeway of being a funny person as long as you're doing your job.
Yeah.
Because the stereotype that I think of the people having of, you know, just, you know, especially with women at work, joking around is like, oh, all they do is just like gossip or whatever, and they're not doing their job. So that's always a stereotype. And then in your head, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I gotta be serious. I gotta be professional, formal, all that. But you do things differently. You're really a disruptor for me, at least.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad that you think I'm results oriented. It's definitely one of those insecurities of mine. I'm like, do people think that I'm serious about my work? But I think one thing that was just instilled in me from a young age is we get our work done and then we have fun. So I think that I know when to be serious about something and when we need to, you know, the pressure's on, there's a deadline, we need to get something done. And I know when to focus and be really efficient and get through that. And then the reward for me is now all this free time, because I was so efficient at doing this job. You know, I worked really hard. Now my reward is that I get to laugh and have fun and celebrate this really hard work that we did. So I think there is definitely a balance there of, you can't do fun first. You need to do the work first and be a contributor. And then you can have all this fun and enjoy the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's something I've been thinking about quite a bit. And it's why I've started to build this practice around, well, it's really on the purpose of joy and meaning and what this podcast is about. So, because I was thinking about, you know, all these ideas out there around work hard, play hard. You got to work hard first and then play, or you have to know how to, kind of what's that word? You got to know how to like delay your gratification. You know, and then do the work before you kind of enjoy, like you said, the fruits of your labor. At the same time, I also thought, what if we can challenge that just a little bit, where it's not that you have to work and be suffering.
Right.
Right? What is it about work that it seems like it's so opposite of play and fun? I get it. Work is not play. But can work also be joyful and meaningful so that it doesn't seem so opposite of play? And that's kind of where I was just thinking like, then the question of like, oh, what if we put a little bit of play in work? Does that seem unprofessional? And especially now with people being so anxious and they're feeling disengaged and not very motivated. You know, is it out of place now even more for people to come to work, so to speak, and, you know, crack a joke? I mean, I don't know. What have you been feeling?
I mean, in my experience, I've been in the thick of it with this COVID-19 thing. And, you know, I'm in employee relations. So I'm, you know, out there on the front lines trying to see how people are doing, see how people are feeling, trying to take the pulse of the organization. So I've been positive and fun in my normal self. And I think the feedback that I've gotten from people is that's helping. And just the consistent positivity. We started a movement in our Slack channel at work called Positive Moment of the Day. And basically each person took turns either posting a quote or posting a link to a video or just a personal story, something positive, and then they nominate the next person to go. So we kind of went through this chain of positivity. And it just, for me personally, was so refreshing because there's so much bad news and like so much nasty stuff going on that you get to see like, okay, there is still something positive. There's hope. There's something joyful. And it made work feel, well, it just built more of a community because you feel like these are real, authentic people. They're struggling too, but we can still find joy and fun and meaning in this. Because there's only so much we can control. We're not in control of, COVID-19 and all these things going on, but we can control our attitude and our own behaviors and how we're going to react to the situations that are around us.
Yeah, I love that. I love the connection you made to the idea of really part of it is emotional intelligence, right? Like you're being self-aware and trying to step back and say, okay, what are some things I can't control?
Yeah.
Which is that I can try to bring some of that joy, right? And try to share that. And that actually reminds me of some research done in the positive psychology area. So my background is in positive psychology. And for those of you who haven't heard of it, positive psychology is the, I would say it's a field in psychology that's all about human potential. So a lot of people who, when they hear the word psychology, they think of Freud or some of the really, founding figures of psychology that's around personality and looking at, what's wrong with you. And then there came a time when there were some scientists that said, well, actually, there's a whole lot about human beings and human resilience and human happiness that haven't been explored. So let's dedicate some efforts to that. And that's where positive psychology came in. And one of the really great findings from that field is the importance of positive emotions. We often focus on like the impacts of anxiety, the impacts of depression, and not to say that we don't need to be talking about them, but we often don't talk about the impacts of positive emotions and why they are so critical to a time like this.
Absolutely.
Right? Just kind of like what you shared, like just being able to share positive moments in the day. You're spreading positive emotions. And what that does over the long term is that it actually creates that battery of crisis buffer. So more positive emotions you have, you're building up your battery of resilience so that when something bad happens, it's not that you don't feel badly, but you have this battery now of this like kind of like this buffer where you just can deal with it a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, when you have that positivity or that lightness, you don't take things as seriously in a hard kind of heavy way. So if you've got that positive battery like you're talking about and, someone spills coffee on you, it's like, oh, haha, I have a stain of coffee. Or you could be like, someone spilled coffee on me. So it's just kind of like, what energy are you pulling from? Are you pulling from this negative energy or this positive energy? And that changes how you react. That changes how the people around you react, changes how people feel about you, how you feel about yourself. So it's just so important to make sure that you build that positive battery up and that you're pulling from that positive bucket instead of that negative bucket.
That's a really good point. I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to the idea of professionalism at work. Because one of the things I've thought about, and I've considered this in multiple roles that I've been, is that I've always been afraid to actually really show, parts of me that I'm like, oh, people are not going to find this professional.
Right.
There are some things now that I am much less insecure about, revealing at work or in the professional setting. But for a long time, I didn't want to tell people that I enjoyed stand-up comedy. And stand-up comedy oftentimes, plays on very controversial topics and it's very edgy humor. And I often, and I used to think, well, if I told people who I liked or what I watch and what I enjoy, it's going to reflect on me something that they may perceive as, just that we don't want around in the professional setting. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Because I understand there needs to be some boundary, but how do you manage that boundary?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert. I'm still learning this myself. But one thing that I've been thinking about along those lines is being your authentic self. And it oftentimes feels like we have to wear one outfit and one hat to the workplace, and then a different hat with our family and a different hat with our friends. And we're constantly kind of modulating between these multiple personalities that we have. And it makes us feel more disconnected from our true selves and kind of like, which one of these people actually am I?
Yeah.
And so what I've been challenging myself to do is to release myself from that obligation to be different in different environments and to just be myself, and to believe that if the environment rejects me, then that's not the right environment for me. And that's, you know, in my career moves that I've made recently, you know, you find the right environment, and Puppet is absolutely the right environment for me. It's very positive, and it allows me to be creative and confident. And so you kind of just have to experiment with different environments, different friends, different people in your life. And when you find the people that allow you to be your true authentic self, it's so powerful, and it really helps you do your best work, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I also feel like there's probably a generational difference to this too. And I think one of the really interesting things now is that, okay, we have like 34 million people who are unemployed now in the US. So it's almost like 2008 on steroids. And I remember when I first entered graduate school, it was like around the 2008, 2009 timeframe. And I went to a career workshop, and I just remember thinking, wow, there's some really good advice, because they're telling you what to write in an email, how to write your resume, and everything is very buttoned up. Right? You have to appear a certain way. You have to ask for things in a certain way, and you always have to market yourself. So it's like very different type of survival techniques that I think some of the generation that came to the workforce after have learned. For example, some of the things I learned around, you know, this is how you ask for things, this is how you write an email. If I were to tell somebody who was younger than me to do that, they might just say, yeah, that's not me, I'm not doing that.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with them saying that, but at the same time, you know, like if that was my response, I would have been told, well, then you're just not going to get, you know, whatever it is you're looking for. But today, I think some of the newer people coming into the workforce are like, that's not me, I'm not doing it. Or I'm not going to participate in that at work because it's not me. It's just, it doesn't feel like me. It's not authentic. Or I'm not going to stop myself from doing this at work. So it seems to be very different climate now.
Yeah, I think it is definitely generational. And, you know, some of the workplaces that I've been in have been heavier on the kind of Gen X and, well, actually just Gen X, where I've been kind of a minority as a millennial. And Puppet is, I think, more on the millennial side than the Gen X side currently. And I think we're even having some Gen Zs enter the workforce now. So that's exciting too. But, you know, one thing I've noticed in the more Gen X dominant culture is it is very traditionalist, and it's about conforming and being very serious. And, you know, like work is this existential thing that you have to fit the mold to be a professional, or you have to wear a suit to work because that means, you know, that you care about your job. Where millennials see it as like, I want to be my true self. I want to have freedom to be who I want to be. And that empowers me to do my best work. Where it's more external with Gen X, I feel like these are the things that will empower you to do your best work. So you must fit into these. And millennials see it as, here's how I feel the best, and this will help me do my best work. That's kind of how I see the generational difference. And it can be really hard to just find the right balance with the people you're working with, because you do have to kind of mold, shape yourself to fit in, because you can't just be like, you know, off in left field. People are going to be like, what's she doing over there? So I do flex my skills, you know, in different places, and tone it down a little bit here, tone it up a little bit here. But it's all about self-awareness, really, and just understanding the people around you and how they feel about the workplace.
Yeah, the adaptation piece, I think, is where a lot of times there's that conflict between the generations. And I'm even starting to feel it, right? And I'm part of the group that just said, sorry, get on with it, or, get on with it, or, move over.
Yeah.
And now with the more Gen Zs coming in and seeing how some workplaces are adapting to them, I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best way to do things. But at the same time, I actually remind myself and take my own medicine and say, well, if this is how the world is shifting, it's better to change now than to be dragged along by the change.
Yeah. And I think that dragged along by the change thing, that's a lot what we're experiencing right now. And I think it comes down really to that generational conflict of, you need to be a butt in a seat at work, and you need to show up, and you need to be here from punch the clock at 8 and stay here till 5, whether you have work to do or not. And now we're like, everyone's working from home. So, and this is like what the, millennials have been like, we can work remotely, we're still productive. And the Gen Xers are like, no, you can't. And now we're like forced into it, and it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people, and we're not prepared for it. So, when the Gen Zers come into the workforce, maybe we should listen a little bit more to, how they want work to be, and start being more adaptive to their work style, and just incorporating it and taking the kind of the best and the worst from every generation to make the best workplace. It takes little nuggets from each generation for sure.
Yeah. So I know we're kind of diverting a little bit from the topic of, joy and laughter in the workplace, but it's still really interesting what you're saying. I want to know more. So as you're, in your role, as you're helping some of these managers kind of adapt to this everything virtual, like what are some of the themes or patterns that are coming up for you that you're seeing?
I think there's one thing that I think is happening is people are feeling really connected maybe with just their team, and their team is working really hard to stay in touch, but then they're feeling more disconnected from the organization as a whole, or the broader organization. And that's just because, you're interacting with these people virtually, and you really have to be intentional about a meeting you're going to have or a happy hour. It's not just this casual, okay, now I've walked into the sales department so I can see what's going on in sales. It's very segregated as a remote workforce, which is interesting because you think we would all be more connected. So I think that's one thing that, we're trying to work through and navigate through, like, how can we stay connected as a big whole conglomerate and not just focus on just our team? And people really like the community of the big company. That's what's cool about office chit chat and, taking a little walk around the office, seeing who's there and what's going on in other departments. That part is really hard to achieve in a remote environment.
It is. And I think this one leader told me that, some of those things that people enjoy, they're not going to happen organically. They just won't. So you have to be very intentional about creating those experiences as much as you can without forcing it, right?
And forced fun is a big no-no. So, and something that I've learned, you can't force people to have fun. It has to be like totally willing, like people want to be a part of it. And, if people don't want to be a part of it, don't get offended. Like sometimes people don't want to go bowling, and that's totally fine. So that's hard to do in a remote environment too, because it does really feel like forced fun sometimes. It's like, here's this happy hour. If I don't go to the happy hour, then I'm not socializing with my coworkers, but I really don't want to go to the happy hour. So you kind of feel a little bit of an obligation in a remote environment to go to those things, I think.
So, when you think about a leader who's struggling to not just kind of engage and motivate their team in this kind of, whatever we're calling this now, this, temporary, all remote or whatever. And they're thinking, well, maybe it'll be good, the team did a happy hour every week, or, they're trying to create just these moments of connection, and they're trying to get people to find more meaning and joy. But at the same time, they don't, like you said, like, you don't want to force the fun. So what do you think they should be doing?
Talking to your people. I mean, make it a collaborative thing, and, talk to your people. Would you guys want to do a happy hour? Would you want to do a coffee hour in the morning? How do you feel like we should stay connected socially as a group? Take those examples, see what the consensus is, and then you have all the power to make a decision that your group is going to like and that's going to work for them. And if they're like, no, we all connect, we all call each other on the weekends, like, we feel connected, there's no problem here, then don't try to solve a problem that isn't a problem. So if we're just thinking, oh, it's COVID, we need to have social fun for everybody to keep them engaged, you need to test that first and ask, do we feel like we're not engaged right now? And if the answer is we feel pretty engaged, then don't waste your time solving a problem that isn't there. Yeah.
I really like that. That seems just so succinct. Like, don't try to solve a problem that's not there, right? And don't presume that your team has an engagement problem. I think it's fair to at least anticipate that your team is going to be impacted.
Yeah, for sure.
But the engagement piece, that's, you got, like you said, you got to test that. So that's good.
Yeah. Talk to your people. They'll tell you what they want.
For sure.
Yeah.
So as I think more about, going back to joy and meaning at work, I think we chat about this a little bit around the gender differences on this and how it's perceived.
Yeah.
What's been your experience with that, or just your observations?
Yeah. Well, I identify as a female, so I can only speak for my experience as a female, but I think that for me, it's hard to find a role model that is like me in an executive leadership position. And what I mean is, I can't think of a woman that's in a leadership position that is fun and joyful and very authentic. I can think of people that are authentic, or, maybe one of those factors. And so for me, that poses the question of, do I need to change to fit that mold, or do I want to try to break that mold and pave a path for people? And so what I notice about men is they can be their true selves in a really sometimes disgusting and ugly way. They can be whoever they want to be, do whatever they want to do, and make it to the top, no problem. But women really, in my experience, I feel like I am constantly thinking about, how did that person take this? Did I come across as, smart and powerful and serious? Do they take me seriously? Do they think that I'm just a dumb blonde? Like, there's all these stereotypes and things in your head. And as a woman, you put so much pressure on yourself. Like, if I do one thing wrong, I've blown my whole chance to get to the top. And I think men don't experience that. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a man, but I think they don't experience that as much, because it seems like they can just make dirty jokes, like do whatever they want to do, call people names. I've experienced these things, and somehow they still get promoted and make it to the top.
I mean, I think this is also partly why I just try not to be myself too much sometimes at work. I think things have changed for me a little bit. But, for a while I thought, well, so if you ever read the book Blank.
That's on my list. I haven't read that yet.
Okay. So it's not a spoiler that I tell you this, but because he draws on like current research, but there's some perception research around, especially if you do trending of, who the leaders are, the top leaders in the US, they, most of them tend to be male, most of them tend to be white. And of those, they tend to be tall. So when I looked at myself and kind of thought about what kind of professional I wanted to be, and this was like, some years ago, I thought, well, I'm a female, I'm a minority, and I'm short. And so I felt like there were three things going against me just based on like research. And so I didn't want another thing to possibly ding me. If that meant that I should just be professional and serious all the time and not let people see kind of like the true me, just in case a true me, took away any chances of a promotion or any accolades or, some, just any recognition. And I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's just a thing with age, or as you get older, you build more confidence. I don't know what it is, but at a certain point, you just say, you know what, I'm going to be me, or I'm just not going to be happy, and this is not going to work.
That's exactly the right thing to do. It's like, at some point you just have to decide, am I going to be who they want me to be, or am I going to be who I am? And there's consequences for doing that. There's sacrifices and things you give up for being yourself, unfortunately, because of the biases that people have, and just the culture, especially in the US right now. But maybe those sacrifices are worth it, because you can feel like your true authentic self, and you can find that joy and meaning. Maybe you won't get to be, the chief executive officer, but maybe you're happy as the HR manager, and you feel fulfilled, and you feel like you get to be happy, and you get to be your true self every day, and people respect you and like you, and that's okay. And I think, going back to kind of that gender difference thing, I do the person that I can think of the closest as a female example of somebody that has kind of joy and levity is Michelle Obama. And I think that is because, well, for one, like her husband was the president, so it wasn't like she was the president. So that there's that dynamic there, right? And the first lady is supposed to be like, caring about children and like kind of supposed to show up a certain way in the community. So she maybe has a little bit more permission or expectation to be kind of this like motherly fun figure. But you see her on Jimmy Fallon, like dancing and like, she's always doing goofy things with kids and stuff, but she's still so respected. And she's an attorney that went to Princeton, and she actually mentored Barack Obama in her law firm. So it's like, why do we just see women like one way and we can't see them in a dynamic way? Like she's a lawyer and a mom and the first lady and all these things. But women, I feel like we just kind of put them down into one box depending on the circumstance that they're in. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Maybe that's just me talking.
No, I think I haven't thought about that in a while. But I think you do bring up a really good point, because I think we're still talking about the role of women in the workplace as you're either a working mom or you're not a mom or you left the workforce to be a mom.
Yeah.
And that still seems really one-dimensional for me. It seems like, oh, those are my options in life, right? And I think, and I don't know how to solve for that, but I think part of the equation of the solving this is that unless the perception changes for organizations, people making decisions, it's gonna, the environment's not going to be much more friendly, I think, for women because, one of the things I remember very clearly in my mind, I went to a talk at this, I can't remember what company it is. It's so terrible of me, but I just remember the CEO talking, right? She did a talk and she was talking about a really great program the company just kind of rolled out recently, which was like a return to work program for new moms. So, new moms would get their maternity or fathers get their paternity leave. And then when they come back, it's not all right, welcome back, sink or swim. You're going back to your old job, your same job, whatever, and just, keep pumping out results. It's, well, we recognize that your life became really complex recently, and that's not going to stop. Yes. So to support you in making your life as complete as much as, in the same way as you can, we're going to help ease you in. So that means you may start at 3/4 time. Your manager's going to support you with that. You're going to get flexible work options. You're just going to get to go back to work in a way that meets your needs because your life is still the most important at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. And I think the more that our workplaces can adapt and make it easy for people to be their true selves and their whole selves and be more understanding of where people are coming from, all races, all genders, everyone's experience is so different. So the more we can just break that mold, like you need to be this, and start kind of coming to people as they are, we're going to, just double the level of engagement we can get with people when they feel seen, when they feel heard, when they get to engage their true inner self. And I think that's where we can unlock the workforce and unleash this new power. But we need people in leadership positions to change and to say, it doesn't have to be this way. There's lots of different ways it can be. So how can we, break down barriers and adapt to people so they can bring their full self to work?
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of like my goal right now personally, is how to bring more of myself to the work I do and making sure it's something I love. So we're going to wrap up really quickly or in a few minutes. So for people listening, watching, I think one of the key things I got out of this conversation is that, yes, joy and meaning are still possible even today. In fact, try to still bring more of that yourself if that is naturally part of you, to bring humor. You need to have those positive emotions to be more resilient. Spread it as much as you can. And if you're a leader, don't force the fun. Ask your people what they need. And Micah, what is your call to action for either the individual leader or organizations? What's the one thing they could maybe either start thinking about or start doing?
Yeah, I would say it's just a simple thing that we probably all learned, at least as American Disney kids growing up. But in Snow White, the dwarves, they did whistle while you work. So it makes your work more fun. Just try to bring something that, makes your team feel like a team and like a community. And that's usually laughter and fun. And that's where people really bond and where they kind of let their mask down or their facade down, because the laugh is like, that's something you really truly intrinsically feel is funny. And it's something that's so human. It's like one of the first things babies do when they're born. So whistle while you work, bring some fun to it. It doesn't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to be all serious all the time. And you'll actually motivate and engage your teams more if you can unleash that kind of levity and, not taking things so seriously. So whistle while you work.
That's great. I feel like I need to start doing that too. Just whistle throughout the day.
Yeah. Don't actually whistle though, because you'll annoy people.
Maybe in your head or
in your head.
Something. Yeah. So Micah, you're brilliant. You're smart. I think you're awesome. How can people connect with you if they want more of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm really trying to boost my network on LinkedIn. So I'm linkedin.com/Micah-Klein, which is my maiden name, Wilson. Micah-Klein-Wilson. I'm sure you'll put the little text on the bottom of the screen.
I will.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So for those of you watching, listening, thank you. You can reach out to Micah through LinkedIn. And as always, you can reach out to me through my email, through my website. Drop me a note if you have suggestions, comment, like, subscribe. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you all the next episode. Bye.